It's time for Physician Family Finances, the show where physician moms and dads like you can get the answers and encouragement you need to turn a good earned income into great life outcomes for tomorrow and today.
Hello, physician moms and dads. I'm Nate Reineke, certified financial planner and primary advisor.
And I'm Ben Utley, certified financial planner and the service team leader here at Physician Family. Welcome to the show. Nate, it was a long, beautiful weekend. Anything cool or special happen to you?
Well, a few weeks ago on the podcast, I was talking about taking my son fishing.
Yeah.
Remember that? So that was a few weeks ago. But so I'll get to what happened this weekend through a story. Okay, let me tell you about when we went fishing. Because I've been waiting to tell our listeners about this because I knew they were probably hanging on the edge of their seats to know if we caught a fish. So we went out.
I can't hear someone say fishing without thinking about the joke that there's a fine line between fishing and standing on the bank looking like an idiot.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of people that day standing on the bank looking like an idiot. And I thought, oh, great. Like everyone, no one's catching anything. And it's like a stocked pond. And because it's right, we're in the city and we drove 8 minutes to get there. So it tells you like how rough it might be. And it was really hot. And we get out there and within 5 minutes, my 7-year-old son is sitting shirtless on the bank.
Oh.
Okay. But there's a park nearby, and my younger son, he's like bored immediately. So we all got our poles in the water, and my younger son, his pole, his lure or line isn't very long, and so he kind of got bored. And Mom took him over to the park, which was like a minute away, or a minute walk. And so I'm sitting there with my son Mateo, and I have a good pole, so I'm like really far out there, and he's about half as far from me. And he looks at me and he goes, "Dad, are we gonna catch one today?" Right? Because he's been waiting 3 years. I said, "You just got to be patient." He goes, "I know the answer to that. We're not."
Oh.
And I was like,
sad.
"What?" I said, "Dude, we just have to be patient. We'll keep trying. We'll get one eventually." He's like, "Okay." So we sat there for probably an hour. And the listeners don't know this, but you told me, to use corn and night crawlers. So that's what I got. I got one line with corn, one line with night crawlers. And we got one bite, okay? And we pulled it in, and the nightcrawler was eaten in half. I was like, okay, Mateo, I don't know much about fishing, but I'm pretty sure these are too big. So we cut the worm in half, put it on the line, and we sat there for a little bit longer. And he's sitting there, crisscross applesauce, and there's a big rail, so he's looking through the holes in the rail. And he sees his bobber go. I keep telling him, you'll know when it goes, okay? If you think maybe it went, it didn't go, okay? And so he's like, "Dad, I got one." I said, "Oh my God," I dropped my pole. I don't know, could have went in the water, doesn't matter. I go, "Okay, slowly reel it in." He starts reeling it in way too slow. I go, "Okay, faster than that." And then he's halfway in, it's fighting him now. And then he said, he screams, "Mom!" all the way over to, and you see my younger son, Chemo, and my wife, Brittany, sprinting to the dock. Okay. And he's reeling in and reeling in and reeling in. I go, "Okay, you got it. You got it. You got it." And then he sees it go above water just barely right as he's pulling it in. And he goes, I don't want to do it. Because about a week before that, I said, if you catch one, you got to take it off the hook. Or at least you have to put it in the water. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it. I don't want to touch it. And then, I caved immediately. I said, I'll do it all. Reel it in. So he reels it all the way in. It was huge for him, huge for that pond.
Yeah.
And my friend that's really into fishing, I sent him a picture. He said it was a carp. So he said, those are hard to catch. So I got to tell him it was hard to catch. We were stuck out there another 2 hours because there's no way he was leaving after catching his first fish. He was so excited. My hand stunk all day for that nasty fish. And he caught another one. He caught a catfish.
Oh.
And then I was like, we got 2 fish in one, and he's giving tips to people around. He's like, you got to use worms. Those work. The corn doesn't work. They're using, power bait or whatever they're using. And so this weekend, what happened this weekend, and what's happened every weekend since, he wants to go fishing again.
Oh, the only thing that got caught that weekend was a sun.
It was great.
Nice.
So
Nice.
yeah, he caught his first fish.
That's sweet. A great story. Well, and I'm glad you caught us up because I mean I've been waiting this whole time to
Yeah.
figure out how that went. Right?
Yep. I sent pictures to some people on our team. I'm like, it looks bigger than it looks in the picture. I
Yeah.
think it was bent over or something, but
Yeah.
I was holding it. Mateo's smiling big.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was fun. How about you?
Well, not a lot happening around here this last week. It's been kind of mellow, so
Lots of
just
action when
working.
your kids are young.
Yeah, yeah. My kids are out, so not a lot of
Yeah.
kid action.
You ready for some questions then?
Bring on the dancing listener questions.
All right. First one is from an orthopedic surgeon in Oregon. I am anticipating a cash call buy in. Where should I get the money? My home equity line of credit? Should I liquidate I bonds or take it from a taxable account?
Cash call buy-in. Usually, I hear about a buy-in, and then you go from not being a equity stakeholder to being an equity stakeholder, whether that's an LLC member or S corp shareholder or whatever it is. And once you're an owner, then there are cash calls, which is to say, "Oops, we ran out of cash, or we need to buy this thing," and then like they come back to you and they say, "Hey, uh, you own 10% of the company. We need $1 million. Pony up $100,000
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow." Oh, okay. Good to have an emergency fund, right?
Right.
So, three options. And I think my answer to this is going to depend a lot on the variables in play, but I can talk about this. So, home equity line of credit would be appropriate for someone where this presents a short-term cash difficulty. So home equity line of credit is kind of like a credit card, where if you don't pay it, you lose your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the interest rates on those tend to be variable. So I would guess that they're right now somewhere between 4 and 8%, depending on credit and the origination, all that good stuff. So if they have a home equity line of credit, that's good. So that can be a backup. Uh, so that would be, I would use that for like quick money, where it's maybe 50,000, maybe $25,000, and you think you could pay it off in just a couple months, maybe, then that'd be a good cause for a home equity line of credit. And depending on how things are set up, uh, you might be able to pay it back quickly. I guess some home equity lines of credit will let you lock down and extend these so it becomes an amortizing loan, which is a long subject. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I would think about that. So I guess it's like consideration is time and not so much rate, because if you only have it for a couple months, it wouldn't even matter if it was 12% as the rate, right? Because that'd cost you 2% in interest. So next thing I look at is the I bonds. So first you have to think about how long you've owned them and whether or not you can slash should cash them out. The nice thing about I bonds is they pay a state tax-free income. So here in the state of Oregon, 9 or 10% is what the most physicians are paying, and the interest from them is tax-free. So you still have to pay federal taxes on the federal debt, though. It's kind of a pain in the butt to liquidate them, and they're a little bit like an IRA contribution in that you can only buy so many of them in a year, right? But by the same token, if I was going to replace an I bond position right now, it just so happens that money market rates are right at about the same as I bond yields. So I think that's kind of an okay place to get money. And then there's the taxable account. So looking at a taxable account as a source, you really have to look at the tax cost basis of what you have in there. So, for example, if they've been investing for the last 5 or 10 years, then there's a good chance they have a low tax cost basis, therefore a larger gain. And if they sell, they're going to recognize capital gains tax. And, that's probably 23.8% for this physician plus 10% for the state of Oregon. So that's 33.8%. And it's regardless of whether or not you put the money back, you still pay that 33.8%.
Mm-hmm.
Compare that to a home equity line of credit where you pay maybe 1 or 2 percentage points for the time that you have it. Whereas with the taxable account, that's a permanent decision. You're locking in a 33.8% loss. So, ouch, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, it is entirely possible that they put some money in there early in the year when the market was higher, and some of that may be at a loss. And so if they can identify their lots, they can sell off the lots that were the higher cost basis and perhaps get a take a loss, and 3,000 of that they can use it to offset ordinary income, which will save them $1,000 in taxes this year.
Hmm.
So, I hate to say depends, but this is not advice. This is for entertainment purposes only. So the entertaining part of this is the taxable account is either really stupid or a slam dunk. The I bonds are kind of meh, and the home equity line of credit is a good thing to have.
Yeah.
So that's the best I can do.
Yeah, and there's nothing stopping you from going looking those tax lots and doing part from a taxable account, part from a HELOC, or part from from your I bonds.
Correct.
So yeah, I think is a good summary is essentially like look at your options in each account. If the I bonds are, if you're able to liquidate them without penalty, I'm sorry, not penalty. If you can liquidate them, like they have to bake in there for a while,
Yeah.
then that's an option too. But
Yeah.
okay, yeah, like many things, it depends.
Yeah.
Next question's from a urologist in Oregon. Oregon is
And what is
hopping
it with
today.
Oregon these days?
Yeah,
People
what?
must have realized that some of us live here.
Yeah.
Hi, Chelsea. I know you're in Florida.
I am semi-retired. I turned 70 in about 6 months.
Happy birthday a long time from now.
How early can I apply for Social Security, and can I do it while I'm still working? So, you certainly can do it while you're still working. I think that was really the reason for this question was,
Yeah.
hey, 70's coming. I know, when you wait till 70, I'm assuming they knew this, but for our listeners who don't know, um, that is the maximum delayed retirement credits you can earn. So when you're 70, take out Social Security because you're not going to get any more money. So you're leaving money on the table if you don't apply for it.
Yeah.
But they're still working. So like, I don't know if I could do this. The answer is yes, you can still get Social Security while you're working.
Yep.
Um, More technical than that, you can apply up to 4 months before you want to start getting benefits. So to do this just right, you're applying, 4 months before you turn 70 to start getting Social Security at 70.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want a Social Security check for your birthday, wait a couple months and then apply.
That's right.
And I would also say expect delays. That the Department of Government Elimination reduced the Social Security staff, and now people are having trouble getting their benefits. There have been delays in application, delays in reaching customer service there, and delays in getting checks. So I'm pretty certain this person is not depending on that check, but I would anticipate delays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next question. This is a listener question. They wrote in, so I'm going to read the somewhat abbreviated version, but it is from emergency medicine doc in Illinois. I wanted to ask a question regarding a recent change in my 401k plan. I'm a partner in a large nationwide physician group that has had its 401k plan with one custodian for as long as I've been working, about 16 years. I recently received word that our plan options were changing from the ETFs that were offered to the now offered collective trust funds instead. It seems my previous holdings were automatically rolled over into what appeared to be the equivalent investment type of these collective trading funds. Also, my remaining ETFs have been converted into mutual fund equivalents. Would
Mm.
love to hear your thoughts about all this, especially any pros, cons you might be able to mention in regards to these collective trust funds.
Mm.
I don't see this very often, Ben, and you actually wrote the response to this listener, so I'm going to let you take it from here.
Yeah, and I'll apologize up front because when I wrote the response, I said something about changing custodians, but you made it clear in this email that the ER doc has not changed custodians.
Mhm.
So seeing these converted is again, yeah, no, that's a rare instance. We don't see that very often. In fact, I've never seen the actual conversion before. But owning collective trust funds is not uncommon. In fact, we have a large employer group that we use for our payroll, And our 401k is with a large organization, and they use collective trust funds.
Hmm.
So, do I know what these are? Yes. Actually invest in them. So, uh, you know, what I'll do is I'll kind of try to start where listeners are at. So, a mutual fund is basically just a big basket of stocks or bonds or both. Okay. And you own a share of that basket. All right. Well, exchange traded funds are like mutual funds that trade like stocks. They're valued a little bit differently, but for the sake of our time together today, they're the same thing. All
Hmm.
right. Mutual funds versus ETFs in a non-taxable account like this 401k doesn't really make any difference. There's outside this mutual funds versus ETFs, whether they're index funds or passively managed funds, there is a tax advantage to ETFs, right? So, but we're in that nice, safe, cozy world of 401ks. So we're safe from taxes. We don't have to think about that. To see the ETFs exchanged for collective trust funds or CTFs, which is similar. They seem very similar. So a collective trust fund is again another basket of securities. This time, rather than it being a corporation, it's a trust, and there are trustees for these trusts. Uh, Reading into more of the details that was in that letter, there is a very large bank behind this trust fund, and one of the trust funds mirrors the S&P 500. Okay, so the bank goes and buys everything in the S&P 500, and they hold that, and they allow people to purchase into this collective trust fund in a way that's similar to exchange traded funds, but the difference is that when you buy in, you're not buying ETFs shares from someone else off the market. You're buying into this collective trust fund in much the same way that you would a regular mutual fund or what we call an open end or continuously offered fund. So I know that's all technical,
Hmm.
but essentially it's like the same thing. So like if it's the same thing, A, why didn't we start with that? And B,
Yeah.
why did we do it now?
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know why they didn't start with that, and I don't know why they did it now, but I think I do know why it was done. So if the custodian who's holding this 401k plan is holding ETFs, they don't get any revenue from those exchange traded funds. Those companies don't pay anything out. But in a collective trust fund, that trust is managed by a bank, and the bank can make money off of that collective trust fund in two ways. One, they can charge management fees, and two, they can lend securities out of this trust, which is allowed by ERISA law. They can lend securities out of this trust and garner interest for doing so. And that can be used to reduce the operating expense ratio of the collective trust, and some of that profit can flow to the bank. So if let's say that this listener had an exchange traded fund that was costing them 0.05% or 5 basis points annually, and let's say they swapped over to a collective trust fund paying where they paid 0.05% or 5 basis points annually, I imagine that they would be in the exact same risk reward cost benefit ratio. However, if the bank is able to lend some of these securities and they get some profit from that, such that they can lower that expense ratio by a couple basis points, from maybe 5 basis points to 3 basis points, then this listener, the CR doc, would be better off because they're paying less in terms of fees. And the bank is happier because they're making some profits on it. And I don't really see a downside here. So to me, this is a lot of technical stuff that's happening behind the scenes. I don't see anything to worry about here. And I think this is kind of in the overall scope of one, which is not at all alarmed, and 10 is totally alarmed. This is like a yawn,
Yeah.
right? That's nothing to see here, folks. Keep moving on. So
Yeah.
I
So
appreciate the question because it gave me a chance to kind of really refresh my memory on these things, and I don't get a chance to teach at the technical level very often, but yeah, this ain't no big deal.
yeah. So what I heard you say is there's going to save money on fees.
Probably so.
Yeah,
They
probably.
didn't tell me what the expense ratios were, but
Yeah.
if I were the fiduciary of that plan, I have an obligation to leave my people in good or better shape than when they began. And so the fiduciary argument would be lower fees because it'd
Hmm.
be hard to make the better returns argument because it's like they said, it's mapped over into similar asset class, same exposure.
Yeah. And you mentioned I don't know why they didn't do this in the past. Uh, I don't see these nearly as often as
Mhm.
just, regular ETFs or mutual funds inside of 401k. I imagine the people who are setting these up, a lot of them either just it's more complicated or they just don't know how to do it.
You see them in big 401ks, 10,000 employee kind of 401ks. Evidently, it takes a lot of money to run those trust funds.
Hmm.
I mean, if you think about it, 3 basis points, 2 basis points, 0.02%. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 basis points on $1 million is 200,000, excuse me, is $200 a year.
Hmm.
That's what, $16 a month? I mean, that's really, really thin revenues, and then they have to take their expenses out of that as well. So it works if you do this en masse,
Yeah.
but this would not be possible for a small employer. They would, I'm making air quotes here, be stuck with ETFs. But
Yeah. Yeah.
like that's like I don't know, being stuck with lollipops. It's like, hey, aces, this is good.
That's like being stuck with a catfish instead of a carp.
Yeah,
You still got a fish.
you still gotta. And this time, this one's actually good eating, right?
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Good. Last question. It's from an internal medicine doc in Oregon. Again,
What is it?
I
It
don't
must be
know.
the weather. It's so beautiful up here
I
these
know.
days.
Okay. I have 1099 income this year
Mhm.
and will be opening a solo 401k. Should I hire my wife so she can contribute to that solo 401k too? This is interesting, Ben, because we actually discussed this before the episode started. Should and can, or should and could, are different here.
Yeah. Do you
So
want to take can or should?
I'm going to take can. You're going to take
Okay.
should. Okay.
Okay. I'll take should.
You certainly can, and it's I think the reason that if I got asked this question, I think naturally I would think, are you allowed to? Um, and the reason I think that is it's unique to solo 401ks in that it's solo 401k. So technically, you're supposed to be the only employee, the solo employee of your company. But there's a special rule for spouses. It's a special exception. So you can hire your spouse and they can contribute to the solo 401k. You can't have any other employees. And then they can contribute to a solo 401k. So you are allowed to do this. The question then I think that is more relevant is should you do this?
Hmm. Yeah. So I think there's a few things around the should. There's costs, there's benefits, there's circumstances. Um, my guess on this is probably not, because in order for them to contribute to this 401k, you're going to have to put that spouse on payroll. Okay. So first, there's the cost of the payroll service. Second is the cost of the FICA taxes, which is you're going to get both sides of this equation. So you're going to get 7.65%, which is the employer portion, and you get 7.65% as the employee portion. And so that's 15.3% that you're going to pay for the privilege of having them as an employee. You're probably going to pay state unemployment tax, federal unemployment tax. So there's a whole raft of things that you're going to pay simply for the privilege of having them on, which is probably going to be about 20% of every dollar that you pay them. So you pay them $1 and you're going to pay 20 cents on top of that. So that's going to reduce your benefit by about 16% right off the bat, and that's irrecoverable. The tax break that you get for contributing to a solo 401k is a temporary tax break. You make a tax deferral this year, which reduces this year's tax bill. And when you take the money out in the future, it increases your tax bill, right? And what you hope is that you're in a very high tax bracket now and that you're in a very low tax bracket later. So that assumes a lot. There is a good chance that you're in kind of the middle tax bracket. You might be in the 22, 24% tax bracket today, and all things being equal, might be in that same tax bracket in retirement, in which case your temporary benefit vanishes, you have no permanent benefit, and you have a permanent cost. So at the same time, paying your spouse employee and putting them in solo 401k reduces qualified business income. We do still have the QBI tax deduction, and I think we're probably going to get to keep it under the new bill, the bill that's coming through Congress right now. And QBI, you don't pay any FICA taxes on it, right? So qualified business income is valuable. However, if this person makes beyond a certain point, then the QBI would not be allowed. So I think the devil is really in the details, and this is something that would require kind of a very detailed tax analysis through a CPA. That'd be the first thing that I would think about it. But then there's kind of the moral aspect of this. So I see a lot of people dodging the tax code, and basically, while they're obeying the rule of the law, they're not obeying the spirit of it, and this is not good. So I would say if you have a need in your business and the person who can fill that role, uh, if your spouse happens to have the skills, knowledge, experience, and training to fill that role, then yeah, go ahead and hire your spouse, especially if there's not anything else going on, right?
Hmm.
But if they have an alternative use of their time, that'd be the first thing that I would consider. For example, maybe they're parenting, that may be something that they're doing. Maybe they're caring for aging parents. Maybe they're volunteering in the community, right? Like, what is the best use of their time? Rather than looking at the tax break, you look at the person. It's a matter of putting people ahead of money. So that's
Hmm.
where I would begin this conversation. And unfortunately, I think most of these conversations begin at the AGI line on the Form 1040, which is just bass backwards, really.
Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, there's a tax break. I should bend my life around it. No, your life is short. You're only going to earn so much money. You're only going to spend so much time with your kids. You can only tolerate so many arguments with your spouse who works in your business, right? So
Hmm.
think about people before you think about money.
Yes. Yeah, and all in the name of, I think to put money in solo, like as you've described, like we're talking about, I did not do the math, I'm throwing a number out there. Let's say this would save you 10% at the end of the day.
Hmm.
10% on 70,000. So you're going to save 7 grand so you can fight with your spouse about
Maybe
this.
70,000. Maybe 70,000.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe only 40,000,
that's
you
right.
know?
Yeah. And that, but like you said, if they have the skills and experience and knowledge to do it and they
And
want to work,
nothing better to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. But I really enjoyed your answer, so I'm glad I let you take the should.
Awesome.
That's it for today.
Okay, good. So, final call to action. If you're looking for a financial advisor, you're listening to two that would love to chat with you. So, if you're interested, go to physicianfamily.com, click Get Started, and apply for an interview. If you're not ready for that, send us another question. We really enjoyed the listener questions that we've gotten lately. So you can send it to podcast@physicianfamily.com. The last time I was on the show, I talked about the 529 spending plan guide that's well developed. I had one listener who asked for that. Thanks, Maggie. Sent hers off. Had a friend who's starting to think about paying for college, and so I gave a copy to the friend. There's a few hilarious things in there. It's got the real Ben Utley flair in it. So if you'd like that, send your question to podcast@physicianfamily.com. And in the meantime, remember, you're not just making a living, you're making a life.
Are you ready to turn worries about taxes and investing into all the money you need for college and retirement? It's time to make a plan and get on track. To find out if we're a match, visit physicianfamily.com and click Get Started. Or you can ask a question of your own by emailing podcast@physicianfamily.com. See marketing disclosures at physicianfamily.com/disclosures.